So I go on YouTube and watch some of that old stuff, and they're chasing y'all out of helicopters, and y'all running for miles and miles down the river.
That was some of the most fun times in bass fishing right there. When Jerry McInnes and Tommy and all of them were up and they came down on helicopters and interviewed us right there.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Hunter and Fish's podcast, presented by Stick 5 Rods. Today I have one of my heroes in the studio with me, that longtime fishing pro, Mark Rose. How you doing, Mr. Mark?
I'm good, Hunter. Glad to be here with you, buddy.
Man, we're glad to have you here. Just to start, just tell me a little bit about who Mark is.
Well, just as simple as the day is long. I'm just an old country boy from Arkansas that's doing a whole lot better than he deserves. I've been fishing. This is coming up on my 23rd year of professional fishing. And I started right over there on the Mississippi River when the FLW came in Memphis. And I was working with the Boy Scouts of America. Didn't have the money for that entry fee to come along, but my dad helped me out. And we got the entry fee paid. I finished third, won $25,000, quit my job the next week, and I've been fishing for 23 years now. I live in eastern Arkansas, on Crowley's Ridge, right over there between Forest City and Wynn on Highway 284. We used to live in West Memphis and Marion area, but we moved over there just to kind of get out in the country a little bit, built a little lake and bought a little bit of hunting ground over there, and you've seen it. You've been over there fishing close by, and yeah, we just wanted to get right outside of town, but yet close enough to Little Rock and Memphis to where, I got girls, so they're gonna need something from the city all the time, and just love to hunt and fish, and played college baseball at Arkansas State. First 2 years at Northwest Community College in Senatobia, Mississippi, and then I transferred over to Arkansas State, finished up there, worked for the Boy Scouts of America for 3 years, went on to fishing. I've been fishing ever since.
So just a good old country boy that gets to go fish for a living.
That's it. That's all me, man.
That you talking about that first FLW on the Mississippi River? I actually watched that last year. I fished the Wynn Bass Club when I'm home.
Yeah.
And they were going over there, and I thought I was going to fish. I ended up not fishing that one, but so I go on YouTube and watch some of that old stuff, and they're chasing y'all out of helicopters, and y'all running for miles and miles down the river.
That was some of the most fun times in bass fishing right there. When Jerry McInnes and Tommy and all of them were up and they came down on helicopters and interviewed us right there, talking to us on the headphone, with in the helicopter. It was just some of the neatest kind of breakthroughs in the media of fishing, really, because now we have a lot of live out there, camera guys in the boat, but back then it was just 4 or 5 cameramen, and you had to find the guys that were doing good, and so they would, when you're 60 miles from Memphis down on Tunica Lake, they can't just, it's not as easy, so it's a short little trip with a helicopter. But yeah, it was good times, man. All that beginning stuff was pretty neat.
Is that where you were running, Tunica?
Well, in that tournament, there was a little old bar ditch just a little bit below Memphis down there that when the river was right, you could get in it with an aluminum boat. And at that time, there was no restrictions. You could take another aluminum boat if you want to. So I borrowed an aluminum boat the first 2 days of the tournament. Well, I borrowed it for one night, and then they told me that the guy that I borrowed it from said, "No, I'm going fishing the next day. You can't use it again." And I done made the cut. I was in the top 10, so I had to go borrow another one. And I borrowed another boat, got in this little bar ditch, made the cut, and then back then we would go in the FLW boats, and once you made the finals, and yeah, went to Tunica the last 2 days.
I know. I saw there was somebody was running to Greenville, weren't they? Like Davey Hyatt maybe was running way down there.
They did. They ran to Whittington.
Okay.
Which it's shy of Greenville, Ferguson, and all. But yeah, that Mississippi River it's unlike it is in. And I love going up to La Crosse and Red Wing and that area up in there, because those fish live right out on the main river. It's great smallmouth fishing and what have you, largemouth fishing too. But down here with the rough fish and all that, it's they're back in those oxbows, and so yeah, you have to run on the Mississippi River to be able to get to a good spot to fish.
Almost like fishing the White River for here.
Exactly.
For the guys that are from Arkansas, know.
Yeah, the White River still you can catch them in the main river, flipping those root wads and stuff for Kentucky. It's some of the most fun habitat and fishing that you can do around here. I've seen your hook set. I've seen the way you flip, and I've been in the boat with you, and I could tell you probably would like to be up and down that White River flipping that old. They call it the black and red gets it.
Oh yeah.
Everybody still calls it a gets it around here. I don't know why, but it's a gets it to all of my buddies. It's a tube.
You can thank Scott Rook for that. I think he kind of stuck everybody with the gets it term years ago. Right
I know. Those guys still call it that. Everybody around the house in the Wind Bass Club, Black Neon gets it.
That's exactly that. White River is a fun place.
Yeah.
I look back. I'm not gonna look now. I think I can remember. I did a little studying on you last night. I looked back at your kind of your results over the last 20 something years that you've done this. 8 wins, Angler of the Year. But I noticed something about, I may have the date wrong, 2004, I would say, to 2002 maybe. You went from mediocre. You're still having some good tournaments, but you went from the 40s to 60s in the points to like third, and then third, and then 10th, or whatever it was. But there was a huge difference.
Yeah.
And that intrigued me. Could you tell what the difference was?
Yeah. That was 2007. And I'd had a career, Hunter, where I was making a living in this sport. My wife taught elementary school for 13 years, and she supported the fishing career early on. This has been a team effort, but I was just making some years well below making it. And then 2007 I began really getting involved in electronics. I wanted to know more. I wanted to use Side and Down just started coming out right about that time, and I just got lost in it, and I began getting closer to electronics companies and friends and people that I knew that were, and along that time, over the next couple of years, became really good friends with Randy Haynes over on the Tennessee River, in that Pickwick area. He kind of fed off of me for shallow water fishing, and I fed off of him for offshore fishing. But it was right before I met Randy that I won my first FLW tournament on Pickwick, and I won it on the spoon. I was watching Kelly Jordan fishing the ultimate match fishing on Kentucky Lake, and he was doing it with this big spoon, and it was just intriguing to me at the time. And so I called around. I found out where I could get the spoon. It was a guy down in Lake Fork who came up with this deal, and I called him, got me 6 or 8 of them. I went to Pickwick, kind of pre-practice for this one FLW tour event, and found the mother lode, and they just ate that spoon up. I won the tournament. At weigh-in, I met Randy at that tournament. We became really good friends, and I just got lost in the electronics world, and from then on, I won a tournament every year after that for the next 8 or 9 years, and it just, or 8 years, and it just kind of, that was the difference maker. I began, it seemed like early on, I was fishing for 5 bites a day. I was that jump a beaver dam, get away from everybody, get in the backwater area.
Mississippi River kid.
Exactly. And then I began noticing that David Fritz was going out there and getting 5 bites and 5 casts. And I was like, man, that's got to be a lot less stressful than having 4 fish in the boat at 30 minutes before weigh-in and getting that final bite, right? That was my fishing style at the time. And so, yeah, I just kind of took things and then I learned from those guys, those friends, Randy and Tony Browning and some other guys that I became really good friends with over there. And made and began adding to that, feeding off of it, the basics, and just taking it, trying to take it to the next level and the next level. And it's now that forward imaging has come along, it's just, it continues to evolve. But it was getting lost in the electronics at the time when I don't think everybody else was catching on quite as fast as I wanted to take it, and I was blessed for a while there to really make a difference, and it helped me understand that offshore game, which has helped me then since. Haven't won a whole lot in the past couple years as far as winning tournaments, but it's helped me have a really solid career of top tens and stuff like that, making championships.
So, do you feel like now with the forward facing, everything going on? I mean, I've never been an offshore guy. I am now. I mean, it makes it way too easy to be able to pull out there and make one throw, hit the brush pile, the stump, whatever you're throwing at. What's that do to you guys that were already out there? Is it crowding it?
It's crowding it. It's making the fish a little smarter. But it'll change again. Something else will come along, and we saw it with different there's been different technique, whether it be an Alabama rig or forward facing sonar or side and down scan. There's always something big that comes along and changes everything. And this will probably help the bank fishermen or shallow water cover fish, because you only got so much mass of water, and if you take it up offshore, which is where we've been beating them to death up shallow, and then they pushed them offshore. Now, if it gets crowded offshore, they just begin to spread out even more, and it's just an evolution. It's not good, it's not bad, it's
What it
ever
is.
changing. It's just what it is. Yeah, there's a lot of people on a bandwagon that wants to ban it from tournament fishing and all that, and it's no different than when a trolling motor came out, or when a depth finder came out, or whatever. It's just advancing, and these electronics companies do a lot for the sport. Put a lot of money into it, so it's just part of it.
That's when I first got it, I was probably 2 years, maybe a year behind everybody else. I got live scope is what I had, forward facing, and I went to little lake here in BB Barnett, and I scanned around. I had no idea. Like my boat was brand new. I dumped it. I scanned around. And I thought, man, that looks like a tree. Well, that looks like bait swimming that tree. I think that's a fish on the side of those bait.
Yeah.
And I jerked bait down there, and the first bite I had was 8 pounds. And my buddy, just almost immediately, we found another single, and he caught a 6-pounder on it. And I thought, man, this is going to be awesome. For the next year, I did not weigh in a fish on forward-facing sonar. So it definitely does not catch the fish. And it drives me nuts when people are trying to ban it, because it's just a tool like everything else. But it took me a year of having it and getting frustrated looking at it. And then when it clicked in tournament, Fall Alabama, and when it clicked, and then I weighed in everything I had off of it that tournament.
Yeah.
But it's just a tool.
There's times you got to turn that sucker off.
Yes, and
It
me
can distract
personally,
you.
when I go shallow, it all gets shut off anyway, so it's quiet, and that's. I grew up fishing Arkansas River, and that's what I want to do. I want to be shallow, but that's not always what needs to be done to pay the bills either,
Yep.
So, Mark, I think probably anybody that follows you knows your slogan. Your slogan is faith, family, fishing, in that order. And you and I both, have pretty strong faith. How much does that play a role in your fishing?
Well, I had to do something where I knew at the time. I got saved whenever I was in the high school, and I wanted to do something in my career where I could live out my faith. I knew it wasn't go to seminary and be a pastor. That wasn't what I felt the Lord calling me to do or anything, but I wanted it to be a part of whatever I did choose to do. And then, fishing came along as a kind of a collision of my competitive spirit colliding with my outdoor passion, and then my faith. I knew that I could live out my faith in that, because I was free to, I was basically my own brand, and I could do my own thing, and I could live out and I could have some ministry. And I believe when we get saved, we all have a ministry. Whatever we're involved in, we have an obligation to be able to share the love of Christ with people. And so yeah, I was going to be free to be able to do that, and it was just it's a big part of what I do. I want to first and foremost share the love of Christ with people while I'm on this earth, while I am in this physical body here on earth. I want to be able to tell as many people as I can how much God loves them, how much He died for them, and how much He wants them to just put their faith in Him and allow Him to, pay that sin debt, and so that they will, be free and go to heaven. And gosh, that's so important to me. Whatever I do, I've got to be able to do that, because I know that's why I'm here on earth. I know that as sure as I know anything about. I may not know everything about fishing. I may not know everything about my relationship with my family and everything else in life, but I know that my job is to share the love of Christ with people. And so I had to do something where I could do that. And in fishing, it's wide open. Unfortunately, some professions, you just can't. They frown on that, and I knew that I couldn't be put in that situation. So, yeah, man, I've seen a lot of been able to share the love of Christ with a lot of people, and some people get saved through all this. So it's been a neat deal.
That's awesome. So, to me, practice makes perfect. And to be good at something, you have to practice. For my faith, it's going to church.
Yep.
Like that is part of reading your Bible is also part of
Yep.
it. But if you're missing that church on Sunday morning, that's a big part of my faith to keep me kind of my tank full, And how is it? Because I live the same life you do. I'm
Right.
gone a lot. How does that? I know you do Fisherman Church. We do it as well at ours. How does that affect your walk?
That's neat that you say that, because we're in a century now, and we're in a time frame now where, and especially right after this COVID, that the church is really hurting, because people are seeing, or they're trying new ways to fulfill that quote unquote religion in their life. And it's not really about religion. Church, I'm like you. I like traditional church, because I can go there. I know that there's been a pastor that has been educated in the Word of God, and he's prepared a message for God's people to come and gather and worship Him. And I get something out of that message every Sunday. I get something, with being around other believers, encouragement, things like that. And so there's so many people now that say, well, I can do all that through listening to a sermon on television. Yeah, yes and no. There's something about the gathering of believers to come together and worship God, and you're learning, a pastor getting up there and teaching you in a group type setting. Man, it's just something that I'm like you. I need. It's how I grow, and it's a staple in your life. It helps, and you don't need to use it. It doesn't need to be a repetition. I think that's the worst thing that a family can do, is go to church through repetition. I have to be careful not to just let that happen. I want it to be something. I want to use it something. I want to learn something every Sunday, and yeah, it's neat that you bring up traditional church, because it is very important. And that was the conviction that I had to start fishing church. I would go to church wherever I was at when I fished FLW and everything, and it would take up a Sunday morning, because that was one of the 3 days of practice. And so I would lose a half a day of Sunday, but I felt like I wasn't losing it, I was gaining it, because that was the best practice I could possibly do. And be hanging out with the guy that made all the fish, So, but then I began realizing that So on this tournament trail, you got 150 guys, however many in your trail, 80 to 150 families coming to this one. They're pulled away from their own home churches, so they can't have that traditional church. And a lot of guys weren't comfortable going to a new church like I would. I didn't care. I'll go, but they just weren't comfortable walking into a First Baptist Church of Gunnersville or a First Baptist, whatever. Um, so I said, well, I just got convicted that actually I was going to church one Sunday, and Greg Bohannon told me, he said, man, I'd like to go with you, but I just don't want to miss out on the practice time. I want to do both. And I was like, God just convicted me that night. Said, why don't you plan a message before daylight, 30 minutes before daylight every morning on your Sundays of your events, whether it falls on a practice day or a tournament day, and you put the message together, or invite somebody else, your other Christian buddies, to bring a message, and y'all have your own church, which is basically uh, somebody preparing from the Word of God. We don't make this stuff up. It comes right out of the Bible. Somebody prepare a message. You have prayer requests, just like you do in a church service. You pray for your loved ones and family and friends inside the church. You sing a little bit in church. We don't do that in the fishing church. Fishermen can't sing a lick, so it's minus the singing basically. But yeah, it's just if it's raining, you wear a rain suit. Um, it's church. So I just got convicted to put that together, and we have it, and it's kind of snowballed. It's carried over into you guys trail. I think Bass is now doing a fishing church, and it's carried over into the Tackle Warehouse Invitational. So yeah, I think it's great that we're not. Sunday, you can argue whether Sunday is the real day that of the Sabbath. I don't want to argue that. We've set aside Sunday to honor God in our country. So on that day, during a fishing tournament or whatever, we're not going to squander that. We're not going to sweep it under the rug just because we have a big deal going on, lights, camera, all that. We're still going to we can do it before daylight, before all that starts. We're still going to honor God on the day that we do it in this country, and we do it in tournaments too.
It's so important to me, to have that wherever you're at, to be in that group, because I was telling my pastor, in 2020 when everybody was online, it's the only way you go to church. Everybody shut down. I told my pastor I've never slept through service before in my life, and I slept through two of them because you're sitting in the recliner, and it doesn't matter how it's just not the same, and
That's right.
I end up falling asleep two different times, but
I know there's something about being in that corporate setting of worship, being around other believers that love the same Lord you do, and you can feed off of one another, and hearing a pastor preach about it, it's something special.
For sure. So, the next thing on your little saying is family. How important is family to you? And I know your wife, she doesn't travel with you, is that correct?
She doesn't travel with me because I've always had two girls in school. Natalie, she's 24 and married now and out of the house, but we still have Hannah Grace at home, and she's busy with a lot of things. And we were blessed along the 2010, somewhere around in there, for my wife to stop teaching and utilize her skills in education to give to my daughters to whenever they might be struggling with a certain subject or a problem or whatever. And so she's able to do that. She's able to handle a lot of the accounting, paperwork, scheduling, stuff like that for me. So yeah, Rose Outdoors is faith, family, and fishing. We Rose Outdoors is our business. That's our brand. We put everything under an LLC. So whether I'm speaking, tournament fishing, whatever I'm doing, it's all under Rose Outdoors. But the priorities are there. It's our faith. It's our relationship with God first, and then we try to put family right up there in its place, right behind God. And it's really important to all of us that I spend a quality time with, my wife and daughters, and they spend quality time with me. Anytime that we're going out in a tournament and there's 2 or 3 in a row, we try to make sure that we either meet in the middle, fly somewhere, and try not to let that 3-week span go without seeing one another. But it's easy in fishing because although you have to sacrifice some, what job do you not have to do that in? Because now this time of year we love to hunt, we love to fish, and we're able to do that. I'm at home 100% of the time, and so yeah. But we try to share the importance of spending time with family, and I think most people in this country get that. There's some that don't, but I think everybody wants to. They love their family.
For sure. When I started traveling 2 years ago, and when I started, I didn't. It was just me and my wife Andrea, and it wasn't that hard to leave. I love Andrea to death, but she was doing her own thing, working. And like we weren't together all the time anyway. So to leave for a week wasn't that big a deal, And then I've got Kinley's 19 months, and I actually had to fly home from Florida from a tournament so I could be there for her to be born. But when she got here, now I've got this new one, Cassidy. It's about 6 weeks old, but I remember the first time I left without him after Kinley was born, and I thought, my gosh, I don't want to leave. Well, matter of fact, I flew home, and the baby was born. Kinley was born.
Yeah.
And I got on a plane that night and flew back to Florida and finished the tournament. And thinking, that she's not even a day old yet and having to get on a plane and leave, It was hard. But then really, when I had to leave for a week, it's like, man, it makes a big difference, And I'm fortunate they're young enough that they can travel with me. But it comes a time here in a few years when they'll have to be at home, be in school. But it definitely, without that family backing, I'm sure most of the anglers' wives are 100% supportive like mine, or you would never be able to do this because it takes a lot away. You miss a lot of things. And
yeah, a fisherman out here needs a good wife that understands this lifestyle and supports it and all that. And it has its downfalls, the time away and things like that. But there's a lot of pluses that kind of outweigh them too, in the fact that we're home. When we're home 100%.
That's right.
And so if you look at if you average out the time, it's just as good or better as a 9 to 5, two people working and trying to make ends meet there.
That's and that's what we've talked about. I'm home a lot when I need to be. Sometimes you can't control it. Most time you can. Out of 2 kids, I never missed a baby doctor appointment with my wife going to them. So you couldn't do that working 9 to 5. You'd miss some. There's no way you couldn't. So.
Hey, and there's times whenever we need to be gone and give them women some time off.
That's right.
Let me tell you something. That's a healthy relationship right there, buddy. Go fishing some days and let them have their days with the girls' time and stuff like that. It's I've always said that my wife and I are the epitome. We are the blueprint of opposites attract. She didn't grow up hunting and fishing, anything like that, and she supports me doing it and doesn't have any problem at all, and I don't have any problem with her doing the things that she likes to do. But she's not a big hunter fisherman. They can be schooling 5-pounders all around the boat. She'll go out there and fish 5 minutes, catch her 2 or 3 of them. She's reading a book, sun tanning.
I always say, if it's 70 when we start today, 70 when we end, a light breeze, nice and sunny, and schooling fish, Andrea will last a couple of hours before she's ready to go in.
Yeah, my wife's 10 minutes.
But she said she wouldn't ever marry somebody that fished and hunted as much as her dad, and I believe she married somebody that fishes and hunts more than her dad does. Well, Mark, let's get back on the fishing a little bit. MLF, Bass Pro Tour, 5 fish limit coming up. What do you think?
Man, Hunter, it's been a hot topic for a couple months now since I think MLF officials and the staff just wanted to. There was so much requests from fans and some of the anglers of getting back to that traditional 5 fish, mainly so people could understand it better. The biggest downfall I think that people had with MLF was too much change all at once. You had the cups, you had knockout rounds, you had championship. How do you get there? How do you advance to sudden death? And it was just all that stuff that people just didn't get. So it's just taking it back to the 5. The same guys are going to do good, man.
Absolutely.
When we came over here, the same guys that did good in 5 fish tournaments did good, catching a bunch of. Because let me tell you something. I've always wanted to catch the biggest fish that I could, even when I was fishing all I could, catching all I can. every now and then you go to a lake like a Table Rock or somewhere like that where you might could put a Ned rig on and just wear them pound and a half spots out. But for the most part, the Eufalos and the Gunnersvilles and all that kind of stuff, there's enough 3, 4, 5, 6 pounders in there to where, man, you got to go after them because they add up. A 6 pounder adds up a whole lot more than 3 2s, and it takes you a whole lot longer to catch 3 2s than it does a 6.
That's right.
So it's going to be the same. You'll see a little bit, I'll pack more of those swim baits, maybe a glide bait or two now, bigger top waters, might have a few less drop shot, Ned rig ish stuff. But for the most part, it's just fishing, man. It's going to be going out there and doing the same thing we've been doing. It's not going to change a whole lot, really.
That's, you see, there was you saw some excitement over it. I think you heard rumors some people leaving, to go different ways, and then you see them back in there. Maybe that turned some people around. I know Timmy Horton retired and then came back.
I know. He couldn't stand it.
It'd be hard to walk away from.
Man, I couldn't imagine retiring right now. And I'm tired of the travel. That wears me out. I get burnt out a little quicker. It used to be November, I was burnt out, man. I didn't want to see a bass rod till February. Then it started being October. Now it's on up into July. But I still couldn't imagine not doing it. I still have so much salt left and still healthy enough to, I may not sound like it right now to all you folks. I got a cold and congested, but yeah, I still have enough salt left to where I feel like I'm going to be able to. My goal is to fish till I'm anywhere from 58 to 60.
You're not going to be a Rick Clunn?
No.
75?
No, I'm not. I'm going to do it till I'm about somewhere between 50 and 60. Y'all will see Mark Rose just kind of fade off into the sunset. And I'll be like George Cochran. You won't hear much out of me anymore, Hunter. I'm not going to be doing a lot of these podcasts. I'm not going to be MCing. That's my thoughts right now. I'm just going to kind of.
Just you and the crappie after that.
Me and the crappie and the family. Yeah, we're going to try to just travel a little bit and maybe just do some things we hadn't been able to do over all these years. But fishing has been awful good to me, man. I can't imagine leaving it right now. I've got some great partners, some of the best in the industry, and we're doing some exciting things, doing some positive things for just humanity, not just fishing, So I'm involved in a lot of stuff and a lot of good, important stuff, and for the Lord also, and so I can't imagine taking away that platform right now. But there will be a time whenever it comes, and I'll gladly hang my hat, just like I did with baseball. And I remember making the last out. We were at Dish Falk Stadium in Texas. Arkansas State was playing in the regional tournament. I caught the last out. I was playing left field. I caught the last out. I left my hat and my ball glove right there on the bench. I didn't want to see it anymore. I left it all, and I walked away from it. And that's probably what I'll do in fishing. I'll probably hang my hat on my somewhere and just kind of walk away and retire everything and go crappie fishing.
There you go.
Yeah, but it ain't gonna be anytime soon.
You still got a while.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of your partners a minute ago. I found out today we now share a new partner.
That's right.
Red River Auto Group.
Yep.
Matter of fact, they've got a Toyota dealership there in Wynn, not far from your house.
Mm-hmm.
But that's new to you. Big news. You excited?
I am excited. I've had a vehicle partner for the last few years, and it's just I want to thank those guys at Landers over in South Haven. It was great, for a time. But they got a lot going on over there, and they're kind of redirecting some things that they wouldn't have put emphasis in, and the outdoors program wasn't as high on the priority list, and they got again big building projects and stuff like that. And so Mitch and I met at Red River, and just man, he really he's already started a Red River Outdoors program that he wanted me to help get involved in, and he mentioned you getting involved in it, and maybe Rusty Creasy and some of those other guys. And so yeah, we're going to reach the outdoorsman, with Red River Outdoors, and that's I look forward to it. Look forward to working with you on it on some projects, hopefully. And yeah, they're a neat. They got a store in Cabot, Ford store, I believe, and then Ram Jeep Eagle in there in Heber, and Toyota and Ford in Wynn.
And I believe they've got another Ram, maybe Hot Springs, South Arkansas. They've got another.
Okay.
So, but yeah, Mitch is just an outdoorsman, man. He hunts and fishes. I know his boys fish, love the fish. So
yeah, I just met him for the first time here recently, and seemed like our values line up really well, and I'm excited about some new things that we're going to be doing over there. I'm really excited about it.
Good deal. Well, hey, so what I did, this is all new to me. This is only the third podcast I've ever hosted in my life. So I really don't know what I'm doing.
You seem like a pro at it.
Well, I'm not a pro at anything in life. But what I did, I posted on.
No, you are a pro. You're a pro inspiration to people all over the world, Hunter. I want to stop and say that, because let me tell you something. I have so much respect for you doing what you do, and I thought that your tournament win, when you won that Toyota Series, where was it, in Oklahoma?
Where did I go? It was Missouri, the one above Lake of the Ozarks.
Truman.
Yeah.
When you won that, I posted on my social media that I felt like that was the most inspirational, biggest tournament win that anybody has ever done in the history of fishing. And I use those big words, in the history of fishing, because let me tell you something. Whenever you have the disabilities that you have, and you're competing against everybody else in the field that has 100% of their physical ability, and for you to have what you have, and for you to come out on top of all of them, is unbelievable to me. And I still think that it's the biggest, most important, most special thing that's ever been done in the history of bass fishing. And that, in doing that, you're an inspiration to a lot of people. And I truly believe that. You love the Lord with all your heart. You give him the praise for it, and you don't complain. You came over there, you shot a whole fishing show with me one day, and you didn't have me push you anywhere, and you shot a bow on. What you can do and the disabilities that you have is unbelievable to me, and I'll always say that win was the most important win. So yeah, you are a pro, and you're a pretty doggone good inspirational influence on a lot of people in this country.
Well, I appreciate that very much.
You bet.
So what I've done, we'll see how this goes. You may not want to answer these. I don't know. So I posted. I'm trying to figure out how to do this and hold my mic here. I posted on my social media last night that I was going to have you on. And I said, let's ask Mark Rose some questions.
Uh-oh.
So, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go over here to Instagram. I don't think there was...
My daughter has a boyfriend.
I don't think there's a couple on Instagram here. I don't.
Okay.
Your testimony, that was the biggest one on Instagram. Would you...
I got saved this summer between my 10th and 11th grade year in high school, and it was just the most special thing. I'll tell you real quick about it. I was a part of a high school fraternity, Delta Sigma, a bunch of jocks, pretty much, football players, baseball players, and we had to do a good turn every Sunday, something to make us look good, something positive for the community. So this Sunday we were going to Vanderbilt Avenue Baptist Church because Keith Garner, who was one of the guys in Delta Sigma, his dad was the pastor, Brother Bill Garner. I went, sat down on the front row, and that was when I got convicted. That's when the Lord started dealing with Mark Rose's heart. I had been to church with my mama and granddad growing up, fell asleep on the pew, and never, But that was when I started understanding the gospel, what Jesus did for me. And I was I was a teenage boy that was just kind of making up life as it went on, kind of not really happy, just living, and had no direction in life. wondered a lot, had a lot of questions, and to make a long story short, through several months of those people, Keith and his dad, and a lot of people praying for me, I finally got it one night at church, and I walked down that aisle, and uh, man, it was just amazing. First of all, I went and met the pastor in his office, and he knew I wanted to meet with him. And I told him I was ready to get saved, and he prayed with me and shared the gospel with me, and I put my faith in Jesus Christ. And man, that was the most special day that I've ever had in my life. And I was so worried all those 6 months that I wanted to walk down that aisle. I was worried about the people in the congregation. I was worried about my parents. I was worried about my friends. I was worried about the girls that I knew in high school. They say, man, I was worried about the negative criticism that I would look up and see from them. But then once I got the gospel, I realized they're sinners just like me. That whether they had, received Christ or not, then they're to get to heaven, they're gonna have to do the same exact same thing. And I just understood, and I just had so much peace after that. I went from a kid that was just making up life as he went to having meaning and understanding. And so, yeah, I got saved whenever the summer between my 10th and 11th grade year in high school, and it was the best decision that I ever made.
That's awesome. Awesome. What else we got? Facebook. Some of these are going to be one-word answers. That's my personal Facebook. There's nothing on there. Questions for Mark Rose. We need to get over here. Where are we at? All right, here we go. Here we go. Does Mark turkey hunt?
No, I don't turkey hunt.
There's too many fish spawning in there.
Well, here's why. My buddies told me early on when that I had to go turkey hunt, so I went with them. I about got bit by a snake. I walked all the way in and on a turkey all the way across a park and walked 3 miles, and a guy shot it off the roost while I was waiting on it to come down. I hunted with a cousin, and he shot it when I was supposed to be shooting it. I had 3 negative experiences right out of the gate on turkey hunting, and then I got to thinking, these turkeys are gobbling when these crappie are spawning. And I want to be really good. I like crappie fishing. I want to be good at it, and I can't mess around with these turkeys and be a good crappie fisherman too. So I chose the crappie fish and spawn over the turkeys.
I had a quick story. I had a place where we used to hunt and had a reservoir on it full of big bass. And second time I decided I was going to turkey hunt. Maybe the first time. I don't know. Me and a buddy, we were teenagers in high school. Went and bought a turkey call with a DVD to tell us how to use the turkey call. And I was there about 10 minutes. I killed one with almost 12-inch beard, and the whole time I was just thinking about that reservoir and when I was going to get to go catch the bass. So I hadn't turkey hunted much ever. Favorite Bible verse, Mark?
Probably Matthew 6:33.
Matthew 6:33.
It changed my life at one point in time in my career. And it was right about that time when the movie, I don't know if you guys remember the low budget movie that I forget the brother's name now, that do the Christian movies, but anyway, it was Facing the Giants. Mm-hmm. That movie first came out. Kendrick brothers, and they still continue. You've seen Overcomer and Firefighter and some of these other movies that have, anyway, that movie came out, and Matthew 6:33 was either preached to me or I heard it I think it was at a revival at my church. Scott Smith preached on it the same week that I saw that movie. And I was to make a long story short, I was fishing, but I wasn't really putting God first in my fishing, and 100% of my fishing. This is way before the conviction of fishing church, and when I was saved, and I was telling people about Jesus along the way, but I wasn't really putting God first in my career. I was doing a lot of things that was career oriented first before God, and I began noticing that, and Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you." And that basically that's Jesus is telling the disciples were wondering about what they were going to eat. They were worried about what they were going to wear. They were worried about the simple things in life, kind of like I was worried about sponsorships. I was worried about, we take the Bible now to put it into our term, where we are now. When we think back to where they were, but it's the same. We'd still deal with a lot of the problems, and at that point, that was where I was at. I wasn't getting there to where it was sponsors and all that kind of stuff, and God just hit me like a ton of bricks with that movie and this verse. Put me first. You're doing a lot of run, but you're not putting me first, and I'll take care of you when you do that. And everything else will take care of itself. And I finally got it.
And man, it's so true.
So Matthew 6:33 is kind of my life verse because it was a big turnaround point in my career, and that verse had a lot to do with it.
Very good. How hard is it to be a Christian and stay a Christian in professional fishing? We've talked about that through the Fishing Church. What's the best advice for young aspiring fishermen?
As much time on the water as you can spend, really, because we talk about a lot of things, the sponsors. You have decals, your looks like you got a new rod sponsor, and we've got you see me with decals and these tournament jerseys, and we have to focus on that a lot to be able to make it out here fishing. But the reason why I have sponsors was because the time that I spent in the outdoors as a young man, learning those outdoor instincts and skills, and to separate, because my fishing was separated from other guys. I had success because I was a good, had success fishing and a good outdoorsman, and that came through spending much time as I could on the water. If you may have rich grandma and rich grandpa and rich parents and can supply you with the best of the best out there and pay the entry fees and get you all the best equipment. But when that river's going to rise, the weather's going to change, the conditions, you're going to switch from different species from time to time and see different water clarities. And you need as much time on that water as you can spend crafting your skill and honing that skill. Then those sponsors come and everything else in fishing takes care of its place. Kind of like when whoever, these young pro baseball players, signing these gazillion-dollar contracts, it comes because they're good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What is your top bait choice during, this one's pretty lengthy. Top bait choices during winter, spring, summer, and fall in Arkansas?
Well, wintertime, it would probably be a jerk bait, just because we just recently had these 15, 16 degree nights, and that boy, you see a lot of shad dying that time of year, and those shad just can't take that. They're a warm temperature bait fish, and so they'll be quivering, and then they'll kind of fall in the water, and then they'll quiver, and that's just, man, a feeding frenzy for those bass, because they're still feeding on them. They know when that is coming, and they still gorge up on them. So a jerk bait is a hard bait to beat in the wintertime, because those shad are real, dying off basically, and that's what a jerk bait looks like when it's twitching. So jerk bait then, springtime, a jig. I love throwing a jig, whether it be rocks or whatever, crawdads, or just getting out on those riprap and pea gravel and all that kind of bluffs. And a jig's hard to beat. Summertime, it'd be a crankbait. I can cover a lot of water, find schools, catch two at a time. So a crankbait. And then in the fall, it would still be a crankbait, but I'd go to more of a lipless, because a lot of our water lakes draw down a lot in the fall, and the bait just kind of roams around. And a lipless, like a red-eye shad or something like that, is a bait that I can cover lots of water and find the fish that are roaming on schools of shad. That and a topwater bait in the fall.
Got to add some excitement with the topwater bait.
That's right.
We're going back and forth here between fishing and faith here. Who's your favorite person in the Bible besides Jesus?
Oh man, favorite person in the Bible besides Jesus?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, Peter would, is one that stands out the most because he was a fisherman, and I'd probably have to say Peter. Spend a little time, Jesus spending a little time on the front deck of his boat, and they hung out and caught just a boatload of fish together, and yeah, there's so many reasons in the Bible that I would say that it would be Peter too, because he just reminds me a lot about myself. Just he ain't perfect, but he loves the Lord and is after his own heart. So yeah, I like David. I like him, but if I had to choose one, I guess it'd be Peter.
Okay. This fella says, first, could I fish with him? Second, what technique is his preferred? 3, would he give his testimony at my church?
Yeah, you can reach out to me at Rose Outdoors, Mark at roseoutdoors.com, and all of my social media platforms are basically at Rose Outdoors. But Mark at Rose Outdoors is my email address, and I'd be glad to. I love outdoor ministry. It's a passion of mine, and depending on if we can get our schedules lined up, yeah, reach out. Favorite technique? It was favorite technique in there?
It was.
Man, just whatever they're biting.
Catching fish.
Yeah, gosh, crankbait in the summer, it's just hard to beat old head shake from a deep diving 6XD on the Tennessee River. If I was to, if they said you're on death row and you get to go fishing tomorrow, catch them however you want, they'd probably be throwing a 6XD on the Tennessee River.
What's the biggest buck you've killed living on the ridge?
While living on the ridge, I've only killed one on my place. I've had a lot of opportunities at some that I just passed and let my daughters and her husband kill them. That's happened a couple of times since we've been living over here, or several times since we've been living over here. But there was one time I came home from being out of town, and I was at a tournament, and a new deer had popped up on camera. I went and checked my cameras, and I saw him out chasing a doe, and it was just a big, non-typical 9-point and real wide and heavy, and old mature deer. And Natalie had already killed one. John had already killed one. I said, I'm gonna go out here tomorrow and hunt that deer. He came out right at dark, and I shot him with my crossbow, and I don't know, he was a low 150-ish, heavy frame 9-point.
That's a big
6-year-old deer. Yep.
Scott Bradshaw says, I'd ask him to be my partner in the Mr. Crappie Invitational. Adam Fall says, beer or whiskey?
Neither. Sweet tea.
Yep. How does his personal life get affected, if at all, being on the road? We've kind of covered that.
But now let me back up to Brad's question. I'm not knocking, that beer or whiskey. I don't think either one of them's going to, I don't want to. I've got a lot of friends that drink and things like that, and I don't want to bash. I don't want, But the bottom line, there's been a lot of, people that have struggled, losing lives and addictions and things like that. So I think if you can do anything in life or where you're not, doing it too much to where it causes harm like that, it's certainly not going to send you to hell. But I certainly believe that it's something that if you don't watch, it can take over and control you. And the best way for me to avoid that is to stay away from it.
That's right.
I could probably pet a snake. If you can probably figure out ways to catch one, a rattlesnake. I've seen it done, but if you do it too much, you're gonna get bit. And I feel like that's a lot of the same with stuff like that.
Best color for Clearwater in Texas?
Man, it's hard to beat a green pumpkin anywhere, whether
I agree.
it's watermelon red or green pumpkin. It's hard to beat. Real natural. There's a lot of bluegill and crawdad shades in there.
When you were young, which fishing icon did you look up to the most?
I've always looked up to Mark Davis, and you need to have him on this podcast sometime, Hunter, because he's right here in your backyard over in where's it?
Ida.
Mount Ida. Yeah. But Mark, early on in my career, I've been partnered with Strike King Lure Company my entire career, and Mark was on board with them, and I hung out with him at like writers conferences and stuff, and he was that one guy that here I am, redheaded stepchild in fishing, don't know nothing about nothing, trying to make it, and he talked to me. He sat down, he said hi to me, and talked fishing with me, and wanted to know about me and stuff like that. And so we hit a friendship off, and I have a lot of respect for his ability to just be able to find fish and keep up with fish, because he started out as a guide, and his profession, the way he put money on the table was figuring out the movements of bass and another species. But so yeah, he's just got a big understanding of bass movement and just how to find them, because he had to catch them. He had to catch them more so then than just tournament fishing, because if he didn't put his clients on fish early on, and he didn't have the forward facing sonar and stuff, he had to really get in tune with his outdoor skills and instincts. And so yeah, Mark was just always one to take the time with me. And there's been others who have helped me a lot. Kevin has really, people think that Kevin Van Dam is this Yankee and that he's cocky and stuff like that, but you wouldn't believe the heart of Kevin Van Dam. And he has spent a lot of time with me and teaching me about the ropes of the business side of fishing. So there's been a lot of them, but if I just had to throw one out there, it'd be Mark Davis.
All right, we're going to get serious on these last two. You ready?
Uh-oh.
Mayo or Miracle Whip?
Miracle Whip. That's a no-brainer.
And my buddy Mongo Fishing asked, Tupac or Biggie? That's rappers, in case you didn't know.
I don't know anything about either one of them.
Either. Okay, well, I think we've covered all the questions, Mark.
Well, those were pretty simple.
Hey, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. I know it's a couple-hour drive down here for you, but I appreciate
Well,
you.
Hunter, I needed a guest on my show for Rose Outdoors, and I had a short notice. And I asked you if you'd come on after your big win, you signing autographs and all these new rod deals and sponsorships and stuff like that. And my little old simple YouTube show needed a guest that month, and you come over and you obliged me with your presence there, and I was just inspired and blown away, and still am to this day. And it was one of my best shows I think that we've ever done. And so when you asked me to do something like this, I was going to come, because I just feel like you set aside some time for me, so I wanted to do it for you, buddy.
It's all in the industry, helping each other out.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Mark. Tell them again where they can find you.
Rose Outdoors,
Outdoors.
Instagram at Rose Outdoors, Facebook, Twitter, it's all Rose Outdoors. Again, that's just my business name and the brand that we put everything under, and so everything falls under there.
Sounds good. Thank y'all for watching the third episode of Hunter Fish's Podcast, presented by Stick 5. Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and be looking for this podcast to come out everywhere they tell me podcasts come out. So it'll be out for long. Thanks, y'all.